I never thought I'd be telling this story to anyone, let alone writing it down. But it won't leave me. Maybe putting it into words will help me sleep again. My name's Kevin. I'm 33. I used to be a night shift supervisor at a shipping warehouse. Nothing exciting, just forklifts, paperwork, and keeping the break room coffee machine from starting fires. But when the company downsized last year, I lost my job. That put pressure on everything. Bills, my relationship with Lena, even my health. I applied for anything that paid and ended up with this toll booth gig about 30 minutes outside the city. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet, lonely, and simple. I didn't expect anything more than long hours and sore legs. What I got instead still haunts me. The toll booth I work at isn't on a busy highway. It's tucked between two back road routes connecting the city outskirts to industrial zones and old towns. Most cars that pass through at night are trucks or folks who know the road. After midnight, the traffic dies down to almost nothing. I usually pass the hours with coffee, books, and the occasional chat with other operators over the radio. Some nights, I wouldn't see more than 5 cars between midnight and 6 a.m. Nothing unusual. That changed about 5 weeks ago. It was a Monday night, the kind where fog hangs low and everything outside the booth window looks smeared and silent. Around 12:15 a.m., a black Honda Civic rolled up. The car looked brand new, shiny as if it had just been detailed, but its wheels were clean. Too clean for the muddy roads out here. The driver didn't look at me. He wore sunglasses, even though it was pitch black, and his face was expressionless. He tossed exact change into the tray without a word. But what really sent a chill through me was the way he moved, robotic, stiff. And when he pulled away, I thought I saw movement in the back seat, just a shape shifting slightly, barely visible through tinted glass. I brushed it off. Working night shifts messes with your head. Maybe he was just weird. I wrote down the plate number anyway. Something about the whole thing felt wrong. I told myself if I saw that car again, I'd pay closer attention. I tried not to overthink it. But 3 nights later, Thursday, he came back. Same car, same time, same expressionless driver. But this time, as he pulled up, I heard something. A dull thump from the rear of the car, like someone hitting the inside of the trunk. It happened just once, but it was loud enough for me to freeze mid-reach for my receipt book. I looked directly at the trunk, and the driver caught my eye. He didn't look surprised. He just smiled, not a friendly smile, but a tight-lipped, chilling smirk. That smile told me he knew what I heard, and he wanted me to hear it. When he drove off, I leaned out the booth and stared after the taillights until they vanished into the fog. My hands were shaking. I thought about calling the police that night, but I didn't. I told myself maybe it was something in the trunk, a tool shifting around. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Still, I didn't want to look crazy over one sound. I told myself one more time, if it happens again, I'll report it. It happened again the following Monday, like clockwork. The Civic pulled in at exactly 12:15 a.m. This time, the driver didn't throw coins. He handed them to me directly, holding my gaze the entire time. I caught a glimpse of his hands, dirty, with what looked like dried blood under the nails. And again, the sound, but louder this time. 2 bangs from the trunk, and what sounded like scraping, like nails or metal dragging. My whole body stiffened. I knew then this wasn't just weird, it was wrong. And if I waited any longer, I'd be complicit in whatever this man was doing. I wrote everything down in my logbook, took the plate number, and when my shift ended, I drove straight to the police station. I asked to speak to someone about a suspicious vehicle, and eventually, I was introduced to Officer Torres. Mid-30s, looked tired but alert. I expected him to brush me off, but he listened as I recounted everything. I showed him my notes. After a moment, he said, "You free for a minute?" Let's talk in a private room." He led me down a hall to a smaller interview room, offered me coffee, and shut the door behind us. He sat across from me and leaned forward. "What you're describing, it lines up with a few other things we've been tracking, missing persons. One case in particular, a young woman last seen near the Southern Highway. But before we act, I have to ask you something." He paused and then said, "If this guy is doing something illegal, maybe even moving bodies, why use the toll booth? There are service roads, back exits, forest paths. People who do these kinds of things don't usually go where they can be seen. So why the toll booth? 3 times? Same route, same driver. Why risk being seen over and over?" His eyes locked onto mine, skeptical but open. I thought for a long second. It was a fair question. "Because," I said slowly, "he wants to be seen. Or at least he wants a routine. If he used the same route every time, same booth, it's less suspicious than constantly changing roads. Maybe he thinks he blends in better this way. Predictable behavior looks normal. And toll booths, they're not high security. We don't have patrol units or backup. We just sit there, alone, taking coins. Maybe he thinks we're too small to notice." Torres stared at me, nodding slowly. "You might be right," he said. "People like this, if this is what we think it is, they're often obsessive, pattern-driven. If you're telling the truth, this guy's not just passing through. He's testing you, and maybe testing us." He stood up. "All right, let's set something up." The plan was straightforward. Next Monday, I'd work my regular shift. Torres and 2 other officers would park an unmarked cruiser in the trees off the shoulder, just beyond the booth. They'd have radios, eyes on the road, and instructions to engage only after confirming the car. We agreed on a code phrase I'd say into the radio. "Can I get a receipt reprint?" That would mean the Civic was at the booth. They'd move in right after. All weekend, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the driver's face. That blank, pale face with the awful smile. Lena noticed I was on edge. I told her I'd seen something strange at work. I didn't want her to worry. But deep down, I felt dread, building like pressure in a pipe. I was just a toll booth guy, not a cop, not a hero. What the hell was I doing? Monday night arrived. I got to the booth an hour early. Torres checked in via radio. "We're in position. You'll know when we move." The air felt electric, thick with tension. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. Midnight passed. I was starting to think maybe the guy wouldn't show. Maybe he knew. Then, at exactly 12:17 a.m., the Civic rolled in. Same car, same driver. But this time, his expression had changed. He looked aware, alert. Like he knew something was off. He didn't throw coins. He handed me the cash slowly, watching my every move. I forced myself to smile and said, "Can I get a receipt reprint?" My voice shook slightly. The Civic started to move. Then, flashing lights, sirens. The unmarked cruiser came out of the shadows, cutting off the road. The driver jerked the wheel, swerved off-road, and tore into the woods. The officers gave chase immediately. The next hour was chaos. They found the car in the Woods, abandoned, still running, no driver. But what they found inside chilled me to the bone. In the trunk, bloody restraints, a broken phone, female clothing, duct tape, and a camera with photos. Dozens of them. Women, terrified, injured. Some appeared unconscious. One of them matched a missing persons report from just 2 weeks ago. I stayed in the booth until they cleared me to leave. I drove home in silence. My body felt numb, but my mind was spinning. I'd looked into that man's eyes 3 times and did nothing. Maybe if I'd acted sooner, someone could have been saved. That guilt stuck to me like glue. 3 days later, just before sunrise, I came home after another shift. I was bone tired. I walked up my porch and stopped cold. Something was taped to my door. A white envelope, no markings. My heart dropped. Inside was a note, handwritten in jagged black ink. You shouldn't have done that. We were just passing through. Now it's personal. My legs almost gave out. I ran inside, locked every door and window, and called Torres immediately. Within 20 minutes, 2 cruisers were outside. Torres came himself. He read the note, face tightening. "We'll put a marked patrol on your street," he said. "Rotate them every few hours. But this guy, if he's watching you, we need to assume he's unstable and possibly violent. Don't leave home alone for a while." For the next week, cops cruised my street day and night. Lena stayed with her sister. I slept with the lights on and a baseball bat by the bed. Every creak in the floorboards sounded like footsteps. I kept watching shadows through the curtains. I didn't feel safe anymore. I don't think I ever will again. They never caught him. No prints, no footage outside the woods. It was like he evaporated. But I know he's still out there, and worse, he knows me now. He looked into my eyes, and I helped the police set him up. He knows I saw through him. That note wasn't a warning, it was a promise. I still work the booth. I don't know why. Maybe because if I quit, it would mean he wins. But every time a black car pulls in at midnight, my fingers twitch toward the alarm. I scan every plate. I stare at every driver, waiting. Because I know one night he'll come back, not just to pass through, but for me. The rain tapped against the lobby windows as I swiped my security badge, the electronic beep echoing through the empty Harwood Tower lobby. At 11:55 p.m., the marble-floored space was deserted, except for the night receptionist packing up and old Pete at the security desk, rubbing sleep from his eyes. I shook off my damp jacket, the October cold still clinging to me as I sat at the monitoring station. The black and white security screens showed nothing but empty hallways and dark offices. Pete handed me the logbook with a yawn, pointing out the 3 analysts still working on the 14th floor, and warning me the east elevator was acting up again. As he left into the stormy night, I settled in for another boring shift, not knowing how wrong I was about the quiet. The tower's glass walls reflected the city lights like faraway stars, the only company I expected until sunrise. My midnight rounds started as usual, checking fire exits, testing door locks, and noting which offices still had people working late. The 14th floor buzzed quietly with tired analysts, their computer screens glowing like fireflies in the dark sea of cubicles. I stopped at Lena Park's office, watching through the glass, her forehead wrinkled in focus under her messy dark bun. She jumped when I knocked, then gave me a tired smile, waving at the mountain of files on her desk, as she explained this report couldn't wait until morning. As we made small talk, I noticed her constantly adjusting her chair, glancing over my shoulder down the empty hallway, with a nervousness she couldn't hide. When I asked if everything was okay, she paused, before mentioning little things being moved in her office. Her keyboard turned slightly. Her chair height changed, a faint chemical smell she couldn't place. We laughed it off as building quirks, but as I walked away, I caught the sharp smell of bleach near her doorway. The tower's quiet hours dragged on, filled only by the hum of the air vents and the occasional elevator ding. At 2:30 a.m., I spotted movement on the 8th floor security feed. Strange, since that floor should have been empty. Zooming in, I saw a hunched figure pushing a cleaning cart down the executive hallway, stopping at each office door to look inside. The timestamp showed this was hours before the cleaning crew's shift. When I radioed down to ask about it, the line crackled with static. I took the elevator down to check, my flashlight cutting through the dark hallway where I'd seen the figure. The floors were freshly mopped, shining under my light. The chemical smell burned my nose as I checked empty offices one by one, until I turned a corner and nearly crashed into an ancient cleaning cart. Behind it stood the oldest janitor I'd ever seen, thin, with patchy gray hair and yellow nails that tapped against his mop handle as he stared at me with eyes that reflected light like a cat's. "You're early," I said, trying to sound firm despite my pounding heart. The janitor, his faded name tag, read M. Walter, didn't answer, just kept staring with that unsettling smile, his stained, crooked teeth showing. His uniform hung loose on his bony body, the blue fabric worn thin at the knees and elbows, smelling faintly of chemicals. When I asked why he was on this floor hours before his shift, he tilted his head like a curious bird and rasped, "Missed a spot," before going back to mopping the same 3-foot section of already clean floor. As I walked away, I heard him start humming a tuneless, off-key song that followed me down the hall and into the elevator, where the mirrors showed my pale face and his shadowy figure still watching from the far end of the hallway. The next night, Lena wasn't at her desk during my rounds, though her computer stayed on, the screensaver bouncing across her monitors above a perfectly centered keyboard. This alone set off alarms. Lena's workspace was always messy, her chair never pushed in neatly. A search of the floor showed no sign of her, not in the break room, not outside smoking, not in any restroom where her usual vanilla perfume might linger. When I called her phone, it rang from inside her locked desk drawer, the muffled tune unmistakable. My hands shook as I radioed building security, my eyes drawn to the still wet hallway outside her office, where wheel marks from a cleaning cart cut through the freshly mopped tiles. Police flooded the tower at 4:17 a.m., their flashlights cutting through the early morning dark as they searched every floor, every closet, every maintenance space. Walter answered their questions with creepy calm, showing a decades-old employee badge and explaining his odd schedule by saying, "The floors talk to him." The officers laughed it off as crazy talk, more interested in the reddish-brown stains on his mop that he called just old coffee. I watched from the security desk as they took his statement, how his eyes kept drifting to the ceiling vents while his fingers twitched at his sides like he was counting something. When they finally left, calling Lena officially missing, Walter went back to mopping the lobby floor, his humming now carrying a tune I couldn't place, but that made my skin crawl. A week passed with no sign of Lena, until a gas station attendant 30 miles north called about a confused woman in a business suit wandering his parking lot. When police brought her in, Lena was unhurt but blank, her usually neat appearance replaced by greasy hair, wrinkled clothes, and a chemical smell clinging to her skin. Doctors said she had memory loss, but I saw how she flinched at bleach, how her hands shook passing the 14th floor elevator, how she'd wake up screaming about the humming in the walls. Her desk was cleared out within days, HR saying she'd transferred suddenly, but not before I noticed fresh scratches under her chair's armrests. Deep grooves, like frantic fingers, had gripped them. After Lena's disappearance, I started noticing patterns in Walter's movements, how he'd linger near offices where people worked late, how the cameras would glitch when he entered certain floors, how his cleaning cart always seemed to show up just as someone mentioned feeling sick. The east elevator began stopping on empty floors, its doors opening to nothing but the sharp smell of ammonia and the distant squeak of wheels. One night, I found a single latex glove tucked under my desk, the inside still damp with something that wasn't water, its fingertips stained pink. Another time, I caught Walter kneeling beside an occupied office door, his ear pressed to the wood as his lips moved silently, his yellowed nails scratching tiny marks into the doorframe. The photographs turned up on a rainy Tuesday, hidden above a ceiling tile in the 17th floor conference room, grainy black and white shots of employees sleeping at their desks, each taken from above at strange angles, like the photographer was standing right over them. In every picture, just at the edge, was a sliver of faded blue fabric or the tip of a worn work boot. The newest one showed Lena, her head slumped on her keyboard, a shadowy figure reflected in her dark monitor with hands reaching for her shoulders. My blood turned to ice when I recognized the tile pattern of her office floor, the same floor where Walter now spent hours each night mopping in slow, careful circles. With the photos as proof, I went to management, only to be told Walter had worked there longer than the building manager himself, that his records were perfect, that I was letting night shift nerves get to me. They offered me a week's paid leave, their fake smiles never reaching their eyes as they slid the photos back across the desk, saying they'd look into it. That night, as I packed up my security station, Walter appeared in the lobby doorway, his thin face half in shadow, as he watched me with that same tilted head curiosity. "Tired, Mr. Cole?" he rasped, fingers twitching at his sides. "The night's not done with you yet." His low laugh followed me into the elevator, the doors closing on his too wide smile. My replacement called 2 weeks later, a kid named Jake, fresh out of college, his voice shaky even over the phone. "Dude, that old janitor's," he started, then trailed off as squeaking noises echoed in the background. "He just stands outside my station sometimes, just watching. And last night, I swear, I saw him on the security feed, but when I turned around, nobody was there." I told him to check the ceiling tiles, to never be alone on the 14th floor, to trust his gut no matter what management said. The line went dead with a burst of static, and when I called back, it rang endlessly in the empty security office. Curiosity got the better of me one rainy October night, exactly 1 month after Lena disappeared, when I drove past Harwood Tower and saw a single light on the 14th floor. The lobby doors were locked, but my old security badge still worked, the familiar beep echoing as I stepped inside. The building felt different at night, without a real reason to be there, the silence heavier, the shadows deeper, the chemical smell stronger than I remembered. The east elevator took me up without me pressing a button, stopping at the 14th floor with a cheerful ding that felt wrong in the stillness. Lena's old office was empty, but not abandoned. Her nameplate still on the door, her chair perfectly centered, her computer monitor now dark but free of dust. The chemical smell here was overpowering, making my eyes water as I stepped inside, my flashlight catching fresh scratches under the desk and strange symbols carved into the window glass. That's when I heard it, the squeak of wheels from the hallway, the off-key humming growing louder with each second. I turned off my light, pressing against the wall as Walter's shadow passed the frosted glass, his uneven footsteps stopping right outside the door. The doorknob turned slowly, revealing Walter's hunched shape lit by the emergency exit signs. He didn't turn on the lights, just stepped inside with that same unnatural smoothness, his boots squeaking on the tile as he approached Lena's desk. Moonlight glinted off something metal in his hands, a pair of scissors, their blades shining dully as he ran them along the edge of her chair like he was caressing it. His humming changed then, when he bent down to sniff the chair back, his neck twisted at an impossible angle, his face pressing into the fabric where Lena's head would have rested. I must have made a noise, a gasp, a shuffle, because Walter's head snapped up, his eyes locking onto my hiding spot with terrifying accuracy. For a heartbeat, we stared at each other in the dark, the scissors glinting in his grip. My breath stuck in my chest. Then his lips stretched into that awful smile, and he took a step forward just as the overhead lights flicked on, revealing the building manager and 2 security guards in the doorway. Their shouts covered my escape as I bolted past them, down the stairs, through the lobby, and into the rain, Walter's laughter chasing me all the way to my car. The police report called it a misunderstanding, an ex-employee trespassing an old janitor doing his job. No charges were filed, no investigations opened. though the building manager made it clear I was banned for good. Lena changed her number and moved away, leaving no address. Jake quit after 3 shifts, refusing to say what he'd seen. And Walter? He still works there, because sometimes I drive past at night, watching the tower's windows for movement. Last week, another story hit the news. Another analyst from Harwood Tower, gone missing after working late. Her car was still in the garage, her phone on her desk, her coffee still warm. The security footage showed nothing but static during the key time. When reporters interviewed staff, an old janitor stood in the background, his coveralls clean, his smile too wide, his humming just audible under the newscaster's voice. Tonight, as rain taps my apartment windows, I keep thinking about the symbols I saw carved into Lena's office glass. At 3:17 a.m., that cursed hour when everything happens, I finally recognized them from an old book on myths. Words meant to trap something inside a space, or keep something from getting out. My hands shook as I searched the Harwood Tower employee files for M. Walter. The system said he started in 1978 when the building opened. But old newspapers told a different story. The original architect was found dead on the site in 1977. The weapon, a pair of industrial scissors. The rain has stopped now, leaving an eerie quiet, broken only by the occasional car outside. My coffee's gone cold. The Harwood Tower's outline visible between buildings across town. One light still burning on the 14th floor. They say every building has its secrets, its oddities, its unseen residents. Maybe he's just an old man doing his job. Maybe he's something else that found a home in the tower's bones. All I know is this late at night, when the world sleeps, the watchers are still watching, and the night shift never really ends. My name is James, and I've been delivering food for Metro Eats for about a year and a half. It's not the most glamorous job, but it pays the bills from my small studio apartment above the old hardware store on Maple Street. The place isn't much, just a single room with a bed, a mini fridge, and a TV that only gets 12 channels, but it's mine. And after working 3 dead-end jobs before this, I've learned to appreciate having a roof over my head that doesn't leak too much. That Thursday started like any other shift. I left my apartment at 4 p.m., grabbed a coffee from the diner down the street, and headed out to make my deliveries. The first few hours were completely normal. I delivered burgers to a family with 2 screaming kids, sushi to some office workers staying late, and pizza to a group of college students who tipped me in loose change. Around 10:30 p.m., I picked up my last order of the night from Bangkok Garden, a single container of shrimp pad thai going to 28 Willow Lane. The cook, a quiet guy named Tran, who never smiled, handed me the bag without a word. I didn't think anything of it at the time, just another order in a long line of deliveries. Willow Lane was supposed to be one of those nice suburban streets where every house has a perfectly manicured lawn and a basketball hoop in the driveway. But as I drove further down the road, the houses became fewer and farther between. The streetlights became more sporadic, leaving long stretches of darkness between pools of light. My GPS suddenly glitched, showing my car floating in blank space before correcting itself. When I reached where 28 should have been, there was just an empty lot with a rusted mailbox nearly hidden by overgrown weeds. I checked my phone, no service. The delivery app wouldn't let me mark the order as undelivered without GPS confirmation. I was about to leave when my headlights caught something deeper in the trees, a glimpse of yellow paint. Against my better judgment, I turned onto the narrow dirt path leading into the woods. Branches scraped against my car like fingernails as I crept forward. The fog had gotten so thick I could barely see 5 feet ahead. After what felt like too long, the trees opened up to reveal a house that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 1970s. The house was a faded yellow bungalow with peeling paint and a sagging porch. The curtains were drawn tight across every window, and the only light came from a single bulb above the front door. I sat in my car for a full minute, debating whether to just leave the food on the porch. Then the front door creaked open, and a woman stepped out. She was tall and thin, wearing a faded floral dress that might have been stylish decades ago. "Oh good, you're here," she called out, waving me over like we were old friends. Before I could respond, a large man appeared behind her. He had to be at least 6 feet with broad shoulders and hands that looked like they could crush a drink can without trying. "Come on in," he boomed. "It's too cold out here for you to be standing around." I took a step back. "Actually, I should really be going. Here's your food." The woman, Marge, she said her name was, reached out and took the bag. "Nonsense," she said. "You've driven all this way. At least come in for a minute to warm up." The man, Bill, stepped forward, his bulk filling the doorway. "Yeah, come on in," he said, his tone making it clear this wasn't really a request. There was something in his eyes that made my skin crawl. I thought about making a run for it, but my car was parked behind theirs in the narrow driveway. Reluctantly, I stepped inside. The interior of the house smelled like mothballs and something faintly sweet underneath, like rotting fruit. The furniture looked straight out of a 1970s catalog: shag carpet, wood paneling, plastic-covered couch. Marge took the food bag into the kitchen, while Bill stood too close to me, his breath smelling like coffee and something medicinal. "You should stay for a bite," Marge called from the other room. "We always order extra to share with guests." That's when I noticed their fridge, covered in takeout menus from every delivery service in town, all with the same order circled in red pen: shrimp pad thai. The counter held stacks of empty containers, some looking years old. My stomach turned as I realized the dates on them went back at least a decade. A loud thump came from down the hall, making me jump. Marge didn't even blink. "Just the pipes," she said too quickly. Bill's eyes darted toward a door with shiny new locks, completely out of place in the old house. "Basement's flooded," he muttered, stepping between me and the door. "Nothing down there but junk and spiders." Another thump, louder this time. Something scratched at the door from the other side. Marge handed me a glass of iced tea that smelled faintly metallic. "Drink up," she urged. "You look thirsty from your drive." I pretended to sip while watching Bill's reflection in the dark TV screen. He kept glancing between me and the locked door, licking his lips. "Mind if I use your bathroom?" I asked suddenly. Marge's smile tightened. "Down the hall, dear," she said, pointing past the locked door. The bathroom was tiny, with peeling wallpaper and a dripping faucet. Under the sink, I spotted a delivery driver's cap from another company, covered in dark stains that looked like dried blood. My phone showed no service. The small window above the toilet was my only way out. I could hear Bill's heavy footsteps approaching down the hall. The window stuck at first, then gave way with a loud screech. Behind me, the bathroom door rattled. "Everything all right in there?" Bill called, his voice much closer now. I squeezed through the window just as the doorknob started turning violently, landing in a thorny bush outside. My heart pounded so loud I was sure they could hear it. Through the window, I saw the bathroom door fly open and Bill's furious face appear. I ran, branches tearing at my clothes and face. Behind me, I heard the front door slam open. "Come back here," Bill roared. My car was only 20 yards away, but it might as well have been a mile. The keys were still in my pocket. I fumbled with them, my hands shaking so badly I dropped them twice. Just as I grabbed the door handle, something grabbed the back of my jacket. I turned to see Bill's massive hand clutching at me, his face twisted in rage. With a desperate yank, I pulled free, tumbling into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life as I slammed the gear shift into reverse. Bill pounded on the hood as I peeled backward down the path, branches screeching against the paint. In my rearview mirror, I saw them both standing at the edge of the trees, perfectly still, watching me leave. Bill held something dark and lumpy in his hands. The police found no record of anyone living at 28 Willow Lane. When they searched the property, the house was empty. No furniture, no signs of recent habitation. The basement door was locked, but when they broke it down, there was nothing but dust and cobwebs. No stacks of takeout containers, no delivery driver's cap, no sign of Marge or Bill. My boss insisted the order had been canceled before I even left the restaurant. The receipt in their system showed no record of it ever being completed. But I know what I saw. I know what was in that house. I quit delivery work after that. Now I stock shelves at a grocery store during the day. The pay's worse, but at least I'm home before dark. Sometimes, when I'm lying in bed, I swear I can still hear that scratching sound from behind the basement door. And if I close my eyes, I can see Bill's face in the darkness, his lips moving silently, like he's still calling me back. The police closed the case after a week. No evidence, they said. No crime. Just an overworked delivery driver and an abandoned house. I keep a knife by my bed now, and I never, ever order shrimp pad thai, because sooner or later, someone else is going to knock on that door. And when they do, I just hope they're smarter than I was. I hope they run faster than I did, because once you step inside that house, once you see what's really in there, you'll never be able to forget it, no matter how hard you try.